Hey guys, and welcome. My name's NG Paradox, and as you guys can see, I am back. It's been a long time, I know, I must apologize. I got sick, and then I for some reason couldn't recover. It kind of went on and off again. And then I had a couple of things the last maybe week and a half in which I just couldn't find any time to record. But as you can hear, I'm fully better now, and I'm back. And I'm here with something very special. A little, shall we say, surprise was given to me by the lovely, lovely guys who made this mod. The mod we all know and love, Crusader Kings 2, a Game of Thrones mod. They've sent me something very interesting and something a little different, a little exciting. They sent me the newest version of the mod. This is going to be a new update coming in the near future. Not sure if I can say when, but it'll be in the near future. So you guys can play it for yourself. They allowed me to have it before they release it for maybe a kind of sneak peek. So people can see what it holds. And as I said before, there's something a little different, a little special about this version. Let's jump in and I can show you guys. What is this? Century of Blood. What we have here is a new scenario that's been developed for CK2, a Game of Thrones. This scenario is set quite a bit in the past from the other scenarios you're likely to play. This is set basically, I guess, straight away after the Doom, when Valyria was destroyed. In fact, we might as well read through what it says to give you guys maybe a bit more flavor of what exactly happened, just in case some of you are not as, shall we say, detailed on the events of this time period. I know not everyone has read The World of Ice and Fire. Maybe people don't remember what they've read before. That's a common thing. It's a, Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire is a big book, lots of information placed throughout. The Valyrian freehold has collapsed. A doom has befallen the peninsula. That means Valyria is now gone and the freehold destroyed. It is said that the fire and smoke was so hot that even the dragons had been consumed. The destruction of Valyria has strongly reduced the number of dragon lords left in the known world. House Targaryen had already relocated to Dragonstone. Some other dragon lords, those who had not been in Valyria when the doom occurred, have survived as well. The destruction of Valyria has left a power vacuum in Essos. Orion, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Orion. Yeah, something like that. A dragon lord who has been visiting Cahor has proclaimed himself the first emperor of Valyria and raised forces from the Cahoric, Volantis, the mightiest of the 9 free cities, has laid claim to Valyria's empire. Meanwhile, there are rumors, of Dothraki riding out to the east. So you can see here, this scenario offers quite a few interesting things. Obviously, one thing about playing a lot of these scenarios is that a lot of the scenarios feel kind of similar. You got the similar types of countries, you got the similar types of places and cultures. There's nothing really majorly different about some of the scenarios. Obviously, the events at the time and the people there are what really make it different. But this one has some very interesting things, which I'm not showing just yet. We're going to look at those in a second. Some very interesting, shall we say, geography, which can make things a little bit different in this one compared to previous ones in the past, and can really allow you to roleplay. Maybe you'll want to try and redo history, or maybe you'll want to try and change history. There's many ways you can do that. We're going to start off in Westeros, of course, and start looking at the main characters you might like to play. You got to remember, guys, though, for this time period, there is not much known about this time period. So a lot of the characters you're going to see, some of them maybe we don't know who they were. And so the modders have probably had to go in and kind of create characters and numbers for them. So a lot of these people maybe won't be as interesting as previous characters, but there are some who are extremely interesting. And we're going to look at the main ones. Most of Westeros is kind of as you expect, as it usually is. I would say this is probably the closest scenario to maybe the Aegon invasion scenario. It's kind of similar to that, because you have your independent Westeros. But in this one, the Stormlands controls the Riverlands, not the Ironborn. That's probably the biggest difference, and obviously that Stormlands, that looks pretty strong. Storm King Arlen of the Stormlands. That would probably be an interesting one to play as. You got, you know, Blackwater Bay, or sorry, King's Landing, as it's called here. And you're probably be quite powerful, and how do you deal with the Riverlanders could be interesting. Playing really as any of the Westerosi kings here could be interesting, because obviously you could maybe try and claim the Riverlands, maybe as the Ironborn, maybe play as an Ironborn king, Iron King Quarren, and try to invade the Riverlands, you know, try and repeat history, maybe even try and rebuild, well, sorry, not rebuild, but actually try and build Harrenhal yourself. A few of the events and intrigues in the game have not been completely changed. If you take Harrenhal, I've had a quick look at many different characters to kind of get the different events and the main characters in this scenario, so I could be kind of well, you know, I kind of understand exactly what you guys will be able to see if you played this yourself, and I know which ones get events and unique events and stuff. But if you take God's Fort, it will still have the intrigue to rebuild Harrenhal, if I remember when I played it correctly. So it doesn't actually say create Harrenhal, which I think makes sense, because obviously, you know, Harrenhal's not built, and to rebuild Harrenhal is probably a similar process, you know, you could say to building Harrenhal yourself. So you could, I guess they didn't want to replace it and just change the name when you played this only this scenario. So I think that's, you know, I kind of give that to them, you know, so it's a little thing, but it's not a big deal. You can just pretend it means building Harrenhal. So there is that kind of nice flavor there for roleplay if you'd like to be the Ironborn. Other than that, like I said, most of them are kind of the same. You have a unique Stark, you know, King Brandon the Bad. I don't think he's going to be a particularly good Stark from that name. The only other kind of named king is Lord Reaver Quarren the Cunning. Jorah here, and of course, probably the most interesting choice to play as, if you're going to choose the Westeros, is King Tommen the Lion King. Lovely name there. This guy, if you are not well known, well, not well updated on the history of this event, he is actually the Lannister who sailed to Valyria. I'm trying to keep away from the rest of the map because there's some really interesting things there. But he actually sailed to Valyria after the Doom and was lost. He was never seen again. Obviously, people just say he probably died, but he also took the Valyrian steel sword of House Lannister, I can't talk today. Roar. I'm just gonna do that. Bright Roar. He took Bright Roar with him, and it was lost forever. And that's obviously been a big thing for House Lannister. That's why they have no Valyrian steel sword, even though they're a rich house and you'd have thought in the past they would have got one. They did. Tommen, though, died and lost it. So if you play as Tommen Lannister, you will actually get an event chain to be able to go to Valyria and see what happens. Now, I don't think you have to go, so you don't have to go if you don't want to. You could change history, you know, stay in the Rock, be Tommen, live a lovely life, have your Valyrian steel sword, or you can go and see if you can survive. Obviously, there's a good chance you'll probably die, because that's how it went in real life. But if you survive, there may be treasure and other delightful things for you to find, and maybe just a nice little adventure for you. I don't want to spoil things, of course. Like I say, I've had a look around. That's why it took me a bit more time. Actually, it took me a few more days to actually do some proper recordings. I want to try out all the different things. I don't want to ruin it, but I will say it's very similar to the Valyrian Steel Sword quest. You know, in the way that it's got lots of events. They pop up. You know, you go sailing, so you go across the sea. It's not the same though. It's a completely different event. Very unique. It's all about, you know, when you get to Valyria, there's no, like, you know, that sort of puzzle thing where you got to get the correct symbols, and there isn't kind of pirates, if I remember correctly. So it's not the same. It's a new adventure, but it's in the same vein as those Valyrian Steel Sword quests. So I like that, though. I wish they had more of those, actually, throughout the mod. But, you know, these guys do a great job. I'm happy with what we've got as it is. This is, you know, by far the best experience for Game of Thrones you can get in the whole world. I mean, if J.R.R. Martin could give these guys some money, you know, lots of money to make a proper Game of Thrones game, I bet it would be awesome. But this is what we get, and I'm very happy. But I just wish there was a few more events. That'd be awesome. So that's really it for Westeros. Other than that, there's nothing particularly special. Most of it is going to be similar to how you've played before, just with new people, new ages and stuff like that. In different positions, shall we say, as well. You know, the Osgreys, of course, here have the North March, which is kind of... Look at that north. That is a lovely North March. What a lovely North March. But yeah, you know I have a soft spot for the Osgreys. Now, if we go over to Essos, this is where things get the most interesting by far. As you can see here, things are very different, and I think this is one of the most exciting parts of this scenario. You can really change history with Essos. And if you're playing in Westeros, this does also mean Essos will be very different as well. And we'll go over some of the main points. We'll go from west to east. So obviously Braavos is itself, Lorath, all the three cities are kind of normal, except for really New Valyria. New Valyria, of course, is Volantis, as we'd normally call it. But they decided to take on the mantle of Valyria. They feel they're the most Valyrian of the three cities, and they deserve to inherit that title. You could take them and try and invade the others. Obviously, in another scenario, you do have this kind of similar situation, so it's not particularly unique. So maybe a lot of you won't be as interested in playing as the Volantis New Valyria, but that's up to you, I know. It could be interesting with the new places around here and stuff. Summer Islands are the Summer Islands. I've not really seen anything special about them in this scenario. Lys could be a very interesting one for you guys. The one thing that makes Lys interesting, at the moment, Lys and Maya, they are fighting against New Valyria. They're at war with them, defending themselves. But also, Lys actually has a dragon rider. As you saw in the little flavor text here, there are actually some dragon riders who survived. And actually, that reminds me, I completely forgot one of the most important characters, the one that probably most people are going to want to play. Here in Dragonstone, you can play as the original Lord of Dragonstone, the Targaryen who left Valyria to go to Dragonstone to save his family. That is Aena the Exile. And what makes him quite an interesting one is obviously you're not going to get the event chain that Aegon the Conqueror had. There's no Conquer Westeros chain, because obviously he did not do that. As we actually know from history, no Targaryen really conquered the lands until Aegon. No one really decided to do it or wanted to do it. You could go into some reasons why, you know, like if Aegon could do it, why couldn't anyone before him do it? And there could be a few possibilities. Maybe they just didn't want to, you know? There's a possibility they just thought it wasn't worth it. Maybe they felt it would be impossible. You know, that's a big task. Even with, you know, the dragons that they have, it could have gone completely wrong, you know, if Aegon, you know, his Black Dread had died, that could have been a big problem. So, it's hard to say why they didn't in the past. It could just, like I say, probably maybe due to culture and religion, they felt it was just, they didn't want to rule these people. There's many reasons why you might look into it, but you can change history. You can play as Aena the Exile and invade Westeros. Create your own empire, your own kingdom, whatever you'd like. And you can do it this time with different dragons. Of course, him and his family have different dragons. There's a few dragon riders, actually. And in fact, I think the nicest thing about this one compared to Aegon the Conqueror is he actually has a bigger Targaryen family. That's probably one of the best things, I think. He actually has a big Targaryen family. If I remember correctly, he has a son and a daughter. His son has a son. And I think they also have a daughter. I think they're all just married together. Son and daughter, son and daughter. Then he has some kids after that. It's a much more bigger family. So that allows you then to give more eggs to the children. Maybe get some more dragon riders. It's kind of interesting in that way. But that's definitely one you might want to play as. I do remember there's definitely a dragon rider in Lys. He does not control Lys. He is not the leader, but he is under them. So obviously, he, I guess, if you want, you could get him to court or maybe marry him and something. I can't remember exactly the position. I didn't look too much into the dragon rider in Lys and his position, but he's in Lys at this time. I don't think he holds any lands. Like I say, you could probably bring him to your court or something else. But if you control Lys, that could be a really useful thing, having a dragon rider. So that's definitely an interesting one, I think, there. The other one then is also in Cahor. As you can see here, Emperor Urian of Urian's Host. He is a Valyrian named Varys. He was in Cahor when the Doom happened. And so you'll find when you play as him, he has no family, no wife, no children. Everyone's dead. And that's the really sad thing, actually. A lot of the dragon riders who are kind of scattered about, I think the same for the guy in Lys, all his family are gone. Could you imagine what it'd be like? Like, you leave home and maybe go for a diplomatic mission, or maybe it's just for, you know, a holiday or something. I don't know exactly why this guy was not there. I should probably look into that. Maybe there is some information on that, but I don't remember it ever being stated. But you then hear that everything's gone. Your civilization, your people, your family. That must be devastating. And so he's in Cahors, and he decides to name himself as the new Emperor of Valyria. And this allows you to have certain events. You can choose to do a few events for whatever you want. He's kind of the one with the kind of events in this scenario. Him and Tommen. Those are the kind of two characters. I think they're the only two characters that have kind of some unique events, like, you know, Aegon's Conquest or something like that. And he can choose to do a few things. One of them is to just declare war on New Valyria. He'll get a load of event-spawned troops, and he can attack New Valyria to kind of put his claim. Or he can travel to Valyria, the Doom. And similar to Tommen, he'll go on an adventure maybe to here, see what is left, see if he can find anything of his people, and then make a decision. If you survive that, you'll then get more decisions, maybe. So then you can create your own little kingdom, or attack Valyria, but I think you get less troops and stuff. There's a few things he can do. Obviously, though, he might die. But he also has his own dragon. So his own dragon gives him a lot of potential. He's obviously protected. A few of the events, I think, involve the dragon if you want. So that can affect him. I think he has a better journey than Tommen. Tommen's one I think is more difficult than his, but that's because Aerion has the dragon. I think that's why. And another decision he could even do, he can even decide just to lay claim to Cahors. He can just rest in Cahors, and they will give him the kingdom. They'll make him the king of Cahors if he wants to. That's an opportunity there as well. And obviously with the dragon, you can do dragon conquest. So that's probably an easy choice to make. You get different events spawning troops depending on what you choose. I think if you just attack New Valyria straight away, you get the most from that. So that can help you to defeat New Valyria. But with his dragon, of course, that makes things a lot easier. He's probably the most interesting character you could choose. Obviously, you got New Valyria there as well. Aegon of the Exile is another good choice. Now, as we come to the Dothraki Sea, this is actually why I say that I think the most interesting part. Now, you might notice here, maybe you don't notice straight away the differences here, but there's a big difference of what's going on here compared to other scenarios. Number one, I'm not sure to pronounce this one, Essaria. Asaria, Archon Lotho of Azari, the free city of Azaria. So we actually have another free city right here, where normally in other scenarios this would all be Dothraki Sea, you know, desolate wasteland. But now this is a city, a thriving city, quite a big city actually, and not weak by any means. It's quite a strong city, so it's a real fun one for you to play as if you would like to try out a new free city. Don't know if they have any particular special events or any particular special cultural things like Pentos or some of the others do. I don't particularly remember. And in fact, I'm going to check out the religion. Okay, so they're actually Valyrian religion. I actually didn't check that out. That's actually really interesting. So there you go. That could be sort of a Valyrian culture there of a free city. That's a really nice one, I think. So there's quite a unique place. Also, of course, you have Hazdan, which we do see, of course, in other scenarios like Aegon's Conquest. But in this one, it's also still there. Another of the sort of, kingdoms or cities of the kind of Slavers Bay, the Giscari people. There's another one there. So two places there kind of add to more cities, more civilization, less wasteland. And of course, up north, it looks a bit of a mess. But what you don't realize is we have here the High King of Sarnor. This is probably one I think a lot of people are going to like. The Sarnor have been a popular people when it comes to people reading about the history books, because we don't see much of them. Their culture was basically destroyed by the Dothraki. If you don't know your history, basically the reason this is known as a Century of Blood is because after the Valyria was destroyed, there was a lot of fighting, and a lot of people were destroyed. The Dothraki, especially you can see here, with a massive Dothraki sea here, united under Calmengo. The Dothraki, in this time period, would go on to destroy countless people. Hazdan, if I remember correctly, I think is one of their victims, but definitely the Sarnor and Asaria are two of the main victims of the Dothraki. It's pretty sad, you know, these people completely destroyed, and so the Dothraki lay claim to even more lands after that. But in this scenario, you actually have a lot more civilization here. All these people here are also kind of the same culture. You know, you got Tall Man there, culture. You have up here on Berry, but all these people, they are kingdoms, as you can see here. Kingdom of Harnoth, Kingdom of Mardosh. So all these people are actually kings themselves, which is kind of cool. But the Sarnor is the High King, and all of these are his tributaries. I thought it was kind of interesting, because obviously they've not really used tributaries in the mod that much. Obviously in Westeros, we kind of have the Mega War system, which is really nice, and obviously works everywhere else. But in this one, they decided to make it so they're kind of tributaries. So you have all these kind of independent kingdoms, but they are all underneath the High King of Sarnor. And I will tell you right now, he could probably be a very interesting character to play as. You could save the people, the tall men of these lands from the Dothraki, maybe even unite them under one banner completely finally rather than tributaries, and maybe even go on to take even more. Probably going to be a fun one to play. I think it's going to be quite a popular one. But I will say the leader you start with, he is absolutely terrible. His stats, I don't think they're random for him. They're just absolutely shocking. But he's definitely a fun one to play as, and actually any of these people. You could be any of them really, and protect the people or try to unite the lands. So you don't have to play as him, but he's probably the one a lot of people are going to want to play as, I would suspect. So that's, I really like this area, just because like you could save the people from the Dothraki. The Dothraki, though, at this time period, though, can go on, obviously, because they're united, to just attack everyone. And most likely from the beginning, they'll probably try to attack people. Though the leader is quite old, so depending on his heir, we're not sure how long that would last. Or maybe you could play as the Dothraki and do again history and destroy these countless civilizations and people. You barbaric bastard. That's if you want to. Now, down here in Gascari, Slaver's Bay and whatnot, it's mostly what you'd expect. You got a few more kingdoms, actually. You got one up here. Greater Master Hargaz of the Skahazdan. So you got another grand city of Skahazdan. So there's another city here, which again is always nice, as long as they have more civilized lands. Not that I don't like the Dothraki, I do like the Dothraki, but it'd be kind of fun to play as a Dothraki and destroy more of them, or if you're playing as a non-Dothraki trying to expand into them, or even play as them and protect them from the Dothraki. I think this is probably the most interesting part of this scenario. That, and Tommen, and of course Aena Targaryen. Those things are what I think are the most interesting parts. Karth actually is a bit bigger than normal. The lands, there's no kind of destroyed lands and stuff. It's all united here. Other than that, everything else over here is fine. There's one more interesting thing though. Yaitai. Now obviously Yaitai itself looks normal, but if I remember correctly, the wife to the God Emperor, Duke of Yaitai, she is a dragon rider. So he's actually married to a dragon rider. So at the very beginning of the game, you could play as Yaitai. Your wife's a dragon rider. That could lead to some very interesting events. So that is definitely another one that could be interesting for you. Other than that, really the ones you're going to find interesting are all in this bar here. Interesting characters are all here. Most of the ones that you're going to want to play are in this bar. Obviously, you can play as anyone, as normal in any scenario, but the uniqueness of the scenario is kind of represented by these characters, and I think there's a lot of new and interesting things here to explore. I've been very excited to play this. I like the differences it makes. I think it's definitely worth the idea that they did this, because the differences with this one compared to, you know, ones later on like Aegon's Conquest, there's definitely some differences here which make it worth a go. And I think there's some very fun role plays we could play. So you'll definitely be seeing some new series. There's definitely one new series coming out soon after this video goes out. Not going to tell you who, but it'll definitely be in this scenario. I'm going to be playing it as definitely one. In the future, maybe you'll see more. I'd love to hear in the comment section. What would you guys like to see? Would you love to see more of this scenario? Do you prefer older scenarios? If you do want to play this scenario, what would you like to see me play as for a series? What are the ones you want to see? I would love to hear what you guys think. And actually, I did miss one. Magister Noho of Gorgosos. This is actually very far down here, as you can see here. Gorgosos. He has the high city of Gorgosos right next to the lands down here, which aren't very useful. So yeah, so if you want to play as that, there you go. You can start down here as a lovely city surrounded by Corsairs. That will be very fun. Yeah, but that's definitely an option you can do. Maybe you can go back and conquer. That would definitely be a fun one. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed seeing a nice sneak peek here of the new update. I hope you guys will enjoy it. I know I have. I just want to say thank you again to the modders for letting me see a sneak peek. I want to say thank you to them for making this mod. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this. You know, they have to update it every time Paradox releases new DLC and stuff. That can't be easy. And I know it's only a small team there. So yeah, just want to say thank you guys. And of course, you guys watching, thank you for sticking around me. I know I've been sick the last few weeks, but I think it has passed. I'm going to hopefully just crack down on recording. Going to start a new series in this scenario, which I did not expect to be given this, so that was a pretty big shock. A good shock and a good surprise, but still a surprise. And hopefully I can get back to the Osgrace series. Really need to get back. I loved that. That was such a fun series, for me at least. And it felt like you guys enjoyed it too. But yeah, I'll see you guys soon. I've been NG Paradox. Goodbye.